Some stories will entertain you, but some stories will stay with you. Welcome to a place where love, life, and hard truths meet. This is Hidden Truths by Erica. What the abroad gives you an opportunity. It tries to take from you an identity. The test is whether you hold on to each other or let go. A note before we begin. This is the story of Emeka and Adaeze. Their story is fictional, but if you are a Nigerian, if you have ever lived abroad, if you have ever been married, or if you have ever loved someone deeply and still felt like you were losing them, you will recognize yourself somewhere in these pages. This story is told with honesty. It does not come to condemn anyone. It comes to hold up a mirror. And in that mirror, we hope you find the courage to choose betterment for yourself and for the person you promised your life to. Watch with an open heart. You can love someone and still be slowly destroying each other. That is the hardest truth about marriage. Picture this: a plate of food sitting on a kitchen counter. Rice and stew, the kind that took 2 hours to make, the kind someone cooked with care, with love, the kind that was supposed to say, "I made this for you, come home and eat." But the food has been sitting there since 7 o'clock. It is now 11. And the man who was supposed to eat it, Emeka, is not home yet. In the bedroom, Adaeze is lying on her side of the bed. Their bed, staring at the ceiling. She's not crying. She's past crying. She's just thinking about how 5 years ago, on the day they got married in Lagos, she could not imagine a version of her life where she would feel this alone. She was 27. He was 29. They were in love. Everyone said they were perfect together. And they were. They really were. So, what happened? What happens when two people who love each other deeply step off a plane into a new country and slowly, without meaning to, become strangers? That is the question this story is going to answer. This is the story of Emeka and Adaeze Okafor. And it begins, like most Nigerian love stories, with a wedding. The wedding was the kind that people talked about for months. 350 guests, a hall in Victoria Island. The bride in ivory lace, so detailed, it looked like it was painted on. The groom in a white agbada with gold embroidery, looking at his bride the way men in movies look at women they would walk through fire for. Adaeze Chukwu became Adaeze Okafor that Saturday, and the whole of her family and his celebrated like the world was just beginning. Because in many ways, it was. Emeka was an engineer, smart, focused, ambitious, the kind of man who made plans and executed them. He had already gotten a job offer in the UK 6 months before the wedding. A good company, good money, good future. Adaeze was a pharmacist, brilliant, warm, with a laugh that filled rooms and a stubbornness that had gotten her through 6 years of pharmacy school. She knew what she wanted. She had always known. And what she wanted was Emeka. The plan was simple. Get married, travel to the UK together, build something new, and one day, maybe first come back to Nigeria and raise their children where they were raised. Simple, clean, beautiful. Life has a way of taking simple plans and folding them into complicated shapes you never agreed to. They landed in London on a Tuesday morning in January. It was cold in a way that neither of them had been truly prepared for. Not just the weather, though yes, that too, but the cold of the city itself. The way strangers did not look at you on the street. The way you could be surrounded by millions of people and feel completely invisible. Lagos had always been loud, overwhelming, chaotic. But it was alive in a way that made you feel alive too. London was efficient, orderly, and quiet in a way that could swallow you whole, if you let it. The first few months were an adventure. That is what they told themselves. They explored. They cooked jollof rice in a tiny apartment in East London and laughed about how the neighbors must think they were setting something on fire. They video called family back home every weekend. They held each other at night against the coal, and it felt like they were the only two people in the world, and that was enough. But by the 6th month, the adventure started becoming something else. Work became real and serious and consuming. Drift is what happens when two people stop paying attention to each other. Not all at once, slowly. The way water erodes rock, day by day, drip by drip, until one morning you look at the rock and it is not the same shape it used to be. Emeka started coming home late. First it was work, then it was after work drinks with colleagues. Something new, something very British. Networking, he called it. It's how things are done here. You have to build relationships outside the office. Adaeze didn't say much. She was raised not to nag. She was raised to be a supportive wife. So she kept the food warm and told herself, he's building something for us. But there was something else happening too. Something Adaeze didn't talk about for a long time. She had started making her own friends. A group of women she met through a Nigerian social group in London. Some were married, some were not. Some had been in the UK for years. And they were funny, sharp, independent women who had very strong opinions about marriage. You're doing too much, one of them, Sandra, told her one evening. Cooking every day, keeping house, working part-time, while your husband is out drinking with his Oyibo colleagues. Ada, babe, this is not Nigeria. You don't have to do all that. Adaeze laughed it off. But the words stayed. And this is one of the quietest but most powerful forces that breaks Nigerian marriages abroad. The slow, steady replacement of values. Not all at once. Quit. Just a conversation here, a comment there. A TV show that presents marriage one way. A WhatsApp group that normalizes something else. Until what you once believed about sacrifice, about service, about commitment begins to feel old-fashioned. Embarrassing even. Yeah, nobody tells you this when you buy the plane ticket. Let's talk about Emeka for a moment, because this story is not one-sided. Emeka was under enormous pressure. In Nigeria, he had been one of the top engineers at his firm. People knew his name. He had respect. He had status. When he walked into a room, people noticed. In London, he was starting over, and starting over at 30 is humbling in ways that are hard to explain to someone who hasn't done it. He poured himself into work. He became the best employee in his team. His manager praised him, his colleagues liked him, and he loved that. He needed that. What he didn't notice, or maybe chose not to, was that the version of himself that thrived in that office was very different from the version of himself that came home. At work, Emeka was charming, funny, present. At home, he was tired, distracted, irritable. Daisy noticed. You never laugh at home anymore, she told him one night. Quietly, not as an accusation, just as an observation. There was also something else, a woman at work. Her name was Claire. She was his manager's assistant. She was kind, attentive, and she laughed at his jokes. She asked about his life back in Nigeria with genuine curiosity. She noticed when he was stressed and brought him coffee without being asked. Nothing happened. Let that be clear. Nothing happened between them. But Emeka started looking forward to seeing her in a way that he didn't look forward to going home. And he knew that was dangerous. He knew it. He just told himself it was nothing, that he wasn't that kind of man. But the heart doesn't really ask for permission when it starts to wander. It just starts to wander. If this story is touching you already, take a second and hit the like button. And if you've ever seen something like this in real life, subscribe. Because these stories, they are closer to reality than you think. Now, let's continue. It happened on a Friday evening. Adaeze had finally gotten her UK pharmacy license. After 18 months of waiting, the letter had come. She had called Emeka from the pharmacy counter, voice shaking with joy. How? He said, "That's great, babe. I'll be home by 8. We'll celebrate." He came home at 11:30. Adaeze was still awake. The food was cold. the birthday-style cake she'd quietly bought for herself, a small, private celebration, was sitting on the table, untouched. She didn't shout. She looked at him and said, very calmly, I got my license today, Emeka. The biggest thing that has happened to me since we moved here. And you couldn't come home. He started explaining. Work things, team drinks. He had told someone he'd be there. He couldn't just leave. You couldn't leave a bar, she said, but you could leave me sitting here alone on tonight of all nights. Ada, I said we'll celebrate on the weekend. Tonight was the weekend, Emeka. Tonight was the celebration. And then came the words, the ones that had been building for months, the ones neither of them could take back. She told him she felt like she was married to someone who had replaced her with a career and a group of Oibo friends who didn't even know his middle name. He told her she was being dramatic and that she had no idea the kind of pressure he was under. She told him pressure was not an excuse to erase your wife. He told her she needed to stop listening to her friends who had put ideas in her head about what a husband should be. She asked him what ideas exactly. He didn't answer. He went to bed. She sat at that table alone with her cold food and her small cake, and she cried in the way that people cry when they are not sad anymore, when they are scared. Scared that the person they built their whole life around might be becoming someone they don't recognize. Here is something nobody puts in the brochure for life abroad. So, when you leave Nigeria, you don't just leave a country. You leave a whole system of support, a family, community, church, culture that had been quietly holding your marriage together, even when you didn't notice. Back home, there were checks and balances. When a couple had a disagreement, someone's auntie was going to hear about it. When a man was becoming too absent, his father or his older brother would say something. When a woman was struggling, her mother was a 15-minute drive away. The community was imperfect, sometimes intrusive and sometimes wrong, but it was there. It held things together in ways you didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. Abroad, it is just the two of you, in a small apartment, in a foreign country, with no buffer. And then the new culture comes in. A culture that says your individual happiness is the most important thing. A culture where marriage is optional, divorce is normal, and staying in something hard is considered a lack of self-respect. A culture where I need space has replaced let's work this out. None of these things are wrong, by the way. Individual happiness matters. Toxic marriages should end. But when you take these ideas and apply them carelessly to people who haven't yet learned to tell the difference between a marriage that is genuinely broken and a marriage that is just going through a hard season, the results can be devastating. Emeka and Adaeze were not in a broken marriage. They were in a hard season. But in the middle of it, both of them were starting to wonder if there was a difference. After that fight, something shifted between them. They didn't separate. They didn't even properly make up. They did something that many couples do. They moved forward without actually dealing with what happened. Adaeze threw herself into her new job. She was a pharmacist again, a good one. She got confident. She got busy. She made her own money, her own schedule, her own world. Her friend Sandra kept nudging her. See how you're glowing now that you have your own thing. Don't let any man dim that light, Ada. And Adaeze listened, because Sandra wasn't entirely wrong. There is power in having your own identity. There is something beautiful about a woman who knows her worth. But somewhere in the middle of building herself up, Adaeze also started building a wall. A quiet, invisible wall between herself and Emeka. Because the wall meant she couldn't be hurt the way she'd been hurt on that Friday night. If she didn't need him too much, he couldn't disappoint her too much. And Emeka felt it. He felt her pulling away. And instead of asking about it, instead of reaching for her, he let her go. Because pride, is a thief. And it was stealing from both of them. He told himself, if she wants space, I'll give her space. She told herself, if he doesn't notice me pulling away, then he never really saw me anyway. They were in the same apartment. They slept in the same bed, but they had never been further apart. It came to a head on a Wednesday afternoon. Emeka and Claire were working late on a project. The office was nearly empty. There was laughter, shared takeaway, the comfortable intimacy of two people who have been spending a lot of time together. And Claire said something, quietly, looking at him with something in her eyes. That was not just professional warmth. She said, you know, Emeka, you deserve to be happy, like really happy, not just successful, happy. He looked at her, and in that moment, something in him wanted to lean forward. He didn't. He sat back. He picked up his phone. He looked at his wallpaper, a photo of him and Adaeze from their wedding day. Her head thrown back, laughing, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He said to Claire, quietly but clearly, I am happy. I have a wife that I love. I think we should keep things professional. Claire nodded. The moment passed. The project was finished. Emeka went home that night and sat in the car in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Not because he had done something wrong, but because he had almost let things go further than they should have. And the fact that he almost did it, that scared him in a way he had never been scared before. He sat in that car and thought about how far he had drifted from himself, from his values, from the man he stood in that church and promised to be. And for the first time in a long time, Emeka Okafor cries. He didn't tell Adaeze about Claire, not that night. But something had broken open inside him, a self-awareness he had been running from for months. He looked at his wife sleeping, and he thought, I have been so busy trying to prove myself to the world that I forgot to be present for the one person who already believed in me. He thought about the food on the counter, about the license, about the cake she had bought alone, about the 10,000 small moments he had missed because he was always somewhere else, physically or emotionally. He didn't wake her. He let her sleep. But in the morning, for the first time in months, he made breakfast, eggs and toast, and the horrible instant coffee she secretly loved but pretended was beneath her. She came into the kitchen and stopped when she smelled it. He turned and looked at her and said, I don't want to do this anymore. Her face changed. Do what? This, he said. Whatever we're doing. This distance. This thing where we're in the same house, but we're not really together. I'm tired of it, Ada. I'm tired of it. She didn't respond immediately. She sat down at the table and looked at the eggs and the coffee. And she thought, this is the most present he has been in this kitchen in months. She said, you hurt me, Emeka. You keep hurting me and acting like it doesn't matter as long as you come home eventually. I know, he said. I know I did. And I'm sorry. And I know sorry isn't enough. But I need you to tell me what enough looks like. Because I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us. She looked at him for a long time. And then she started to cry. Not the scared, silent kind of crying from that Friday night. A different kind. The kind that come when someone finally says the exact thing you needed to hear after you had almost given up waiting. The hardest conversations are the ones that save you. They start with 2 words. I know. Emeka and Adaeze were at a crossroads. They could go back to the silence, to the separate lives, to the comfort of pretending everything was fine. Or they could choose the harder road, the one that required honesty, vulnerability, and the kind of love that shows up, even when it's inconvenient. They chose the harder road, but before the healing could begin, more truth had to come out, because you cannot build something new on a foundation of secrets. Come back for part 2, where the real work begins, where love is not just a feeling, but a choice made over and over again, even when it's difficult. This is part 1 of 2 Worlds, 1 Love. If this story meant something to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe love is still worth fighting for, subscribe. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we tell the ones that matter.